Welcome everyone to the High Ground Podcast. I am Darth Chaco, your host, and I'm super excited because we are going to be talking about the movie that started it all. We're going back to 1977. We're talking about Star Wars, later renamed A New Hope. As usual, I do have an awesome group of people that will be talking about it. So, yeah, sit back and enjoy right here on the High Ground. All right. Hello. Thank you guys for joining. I have two first timers on this show, but who are definitely not strangers to podcasting. Um, as well as we're going to have another person join. He's running a little bit late. So, yeah, he'll be up here in a little bit. But I will start by having us go around the room and have everyone introduce and say who you are, where we can find your amazing content. And you have to pick a Star Wars era to live in. What era is it, and what do you do? Um, yeah, I'll start with Han first.
Cool, because Han talks first, right? Hey guys, my name's Han. I'm also a Star Wars podcaster. I met Chaco a while ago. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. You've
Yeah,
been on
we met in
mine
real
once or
life
twice.
recently too.
Yes, it was so good just randomly bumping into you at Celebration. Um, it made my day for that little panel you were in. Um, but yeah, you guys can find me at Han Talks First, any podcast distributor or my YouTube page. I go live every once in a while. Really loving what's happening with Obi-Wan right now. Um, but yeah, just fellow Star Wars podcaster. If I had to choose an era of Star Wars to live in, I think I would want it to be the prequel era, simply because just the potential of maybe I could get into the Jedi Academy and learn to become a Jedi, and also just the aesthetic of that world on Coruscant and the world building that was done in those movies. I feel like you could go anywhere. So that would be my era.
Nice, I like it. And Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica, and I am a co host on a Certain Point of View podcast. And we're on all the places you can listen to podcasts, as well as one of the hosts, Michael, he runs our Twitter account. I do the Instagram, and then we do a TikTok as well. So
Nice. Yep, always awesome to see you guys pop up and had a blast talking your podcast as well.
yeah, it was so fun. I was so glad that I got to be on that one.
Yeah. But
An era. Ooh, I'm such an indecisive person. I'm gonna go even before prequels, and I'm gonna do Old Republic. Um, and just because I don't know, I think it'd be fun. A lot of lore. Who knows? Who knows what you could be back then? So that's what I pick.
I like it. And we have a latecomer with Obi
Hey
Sean.
guys, sorry I'm late.
No worries, we are live, but I wanted to start. And you joined just the right time for me to ask, who you are, where we can find your content, and if you were in the Star Wars universe, what era would you live in, and what would you do?
So my name is Sean, aka Obi.Sean_Kenobi at TikTok. That's where I'm most around, and then I also have a YouTube channel and Instagram under the same name. And then if I were to live in a certain era of Star Wars, I'd probably want to find a non-war era.
Good luck.
Just not engaged in any type of conflict. I hear moisture farming is pretty lucrative. I'd probably be a farmer of some type. Pull a Galen Urso and just dip out into the middle of nowhere.
Farming, a man of your talents.
No,
No,
I don't want to be a farmer.
even farming. Well, you never know. Like if your farm is right, because like Embo became a farmer and he's like a badass bounty hunter. So you never know. I have Vivian Baki in the chat saying Star Wars Rebels era, living the ghost with the family. That might be pretty sweet. Nathan Wardrop, New Republic era, probably system security or bounty hunting. And Jordy Jedi, I would like to live in the High Republic era, to be honest. I would feel sort of protected. Love to be a senator. That's also where I would put for largely the same reason. Yes, there might be random Nihil attacks. Yes, something might fall out of hyperspace and just like obliterate, wherever I live or whatever. But you know what? All eras are terrifying in Star Wars. Let's just put it that way. I would hope to be a Jedi, but I don't know. Who knows? But awesome. Yeah, thank you guys for joining. Has everyone got a chance to see Obi-Wan episode 5 yet?
Yep, watched
Yes.
it this morning.
Awesome. All right, so before we jump into A New Hope, I like to talk about whatever news or things that have been coming out. There's not a lot of news, but we got Obi-Wan episode 5. Your guys' thoughts. I'll just open a panel. Go.
So good. I really enjoyed it.
What was your favorite part?
Ooh, the flashbacks for sure. I love the prequels. I mean, I love every Star Wars, everything. I'm one of those people. And so it just, I don't know, it just made my heart so happy just to kind of see Anakin and Obi-Wan, even though it's like such a sad time for them because of what Obi-Wan's going through and what he's remembering, teaching Anakin and thinking, this is how he was then, this is what he's going to do now, kind of planning his moves. But I don't know, it was good to finally see, like, actually Hayden, for me, at least, so.
Yeah, and man, Hayden can still move, man. Like, those guys are starting to get up there, and he's playing his 19-year-old self at the age of 40, and he's still going for it. What are your thoughts on?
I will say, seeing them fighting again and being very active and against each other, it just took me back to those prequel days. So that was cool to see as well. To be quite honest, after the first 3 episodes, it's kind of gone down in my enjoyment for me. I thought this week's episode was significantly better than last week's. But there's part of it that just kind of, for me, have pragmatic issues. And it's just kind of is like defining like what exactly this show is supposed to be. For me, when you hear Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think of it as like a character study about a veteran just trying to cope with what's going on and stuff. And there's a part of me that just kind of feels like in episode 4 and 5, we kind of lost Obi-Wan's story. And I understand you got to focus on Reva and some of the other characters a little bit, but it was a step up from last week. I really enjoyed the first 3. I don't want people to think that I just hate the show. And I really think next week's going to deliver. There was some talk. It's 93 minutes long, so it'll be a long episode.
Ooh.
But I'm still hyped to see what's going to happen next week. But overall, that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And Obi-Wan?
Like some other creators have said, it's a study in patience. I think a lot of things that a lot of people were griping about were paid off in this episode, and I also think that that's going to pay off in the next episode as well, and it's going to hone back in on Obi-Wan towards the end. I love the kind of chess match between Vader and Obi-Wan, and the way that Deborah Chow kind of just juxtaposes the two of them on film in certain scenes, like the back to tank, and then in this episode going between them via flashbacks and the current time was really cool to see. I knew Quizzy was going to come back in some way, and I thought the way he appeared was exactly what I thought was going to happen. So I'm glad that paid off as well.
Yeah, we got a lot of payoff from the previous 4 episodes, and I still laugh about thinking about Quizzy, right? The Grand Inquisitor is on the ship with them, but he's like hiding in a closet because so like Reva doesn't see him, and he has a little like beeper for Vader to be like, "Hide, all right, come down. We're gonna surprise you right now." Like I don't know, I just picture that weird like between the scenes thing. That's my favorite.
Yeah, I was also sad to see Tala and Ned B go, but I thought it was inevitable for at least one of them, or if not both. But it was cool to see Ned B again before his epic send off.
Yeah, and I mean, it gives you that droid love, because it was all about the action. So he couldn't speak, but he still loved him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, do you, Han, Jessica, any further thoughts? Any other things you wanted to bring out about the episode?
I really like Reva. I like her character, and I know she's been getting a lot of flack, but I don't know. I like her attitude, and I just really like how she was trying to, in her mind, trying to outsmart Vader, which she really can't do. And so I love that twist in this episode. It was so entertaining, and I don't know, it's exactly what I wanted, I feel like, to happen. So I really enjoyed that. I mean, she just had just such great energy, I don't know.
Yeah.
I will.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'll just say, it was really nice to kind of get a sense of Deborah Chow as a visionary director and kind of doing her own thing. Because I did like her episodes in Mandalorian, and I was a little hesitant when it was announced she was doing her own the whole season. But I tell you, she really impressed me. That first episode to me was incredible, and I think she's doing a good job. It's nice to see her touch on Star Wars and these characters. I think she's doing a good job.
Yeah, I agreed, and I did not need to see that visceral of a portrayal of Order 66. Um, that has we always knew what Anakin did, but it was rough to see to see it like that. Yeah, he's a.
I'm sure Theory enjoyed it.
It was yeah, it was rough. Also, well, I'll save more of the rest for my breakdown, which I'm going to be working on tonight after this. There's a few cool little Easter eggs I think I've noticed. We'll see if I can get it out before everyone else covers the same thing. But let's move into the actual meat and potatoes here. Let's talk A New Hope, the one that started it all. I know every episode of From a Certain Point of View podcast, Jessica mentions that it's her favorite, and it makes me happy every time I.
Can you still see me? I'm frozen on my end.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, it is my favorite Star Wars movie, and it will always be. And I'm unashamed to say that.
Now, none of us were alive in 1977. I don't believe. If you were, y'all look great. But how did this movie come into your guys' lives? What is the earliest memory, and what made it special? I guess I'll ask Sean first.
My earliest memory of it was actually a family member actually had the originals on Laserdisc, which is obsolete at this point. But if you still have a Laserdisc player, it's still an amazing way to watch movies. But that was the first time I saw A New Hope, and then I remember also getting to see it when Lucas re-released them, the special edition VHSs. So that's like my childhood memory of the movies. But it just always comes back to happy memories and nostalgia, and it's always going to be up there as one of my favorites. Empire is my number one, but A New Hope always holds a special place in my heart. So
yeah, definitely. And how about you, Jessica? We'll wait for Han to come back.
So my parents saw it in the 70s and 80s, like all the movies, in their 20s. And so I just kind of grew up with Star Wars. Like it was just something that we watched. My earliest memory is probably honestly watching it with, I don't even know how old I was young, but watching it with my dad's side of the family, my cousins, all of my male cousins. And they'd be like, "You be Princess Leia," and then we'd like reenact everything. And so I just have really, really great memories from that movie from the beginning.
Hopefully you didn't have to kiss your siblings.
No,
but that
I don't
would
have
be.
any siblings, so we're
That
safe
would,
there, and I still didn't have to kiss anybody.
I was like, we don't reenact that part.
No.
We can kind of gloss over that. Um, the funny thing is I can't remember any time where it wasn't part of my life.
Yeah.
Like one of my very first memories is just seeing where the Millennium Falcon is slowly pulling into the Death Star, and that scene is so beautiful and iconic, and like the music, and it just hits so hard there. That it's so much serotonin whenever that happens. And I also got Nathan Wardrop here in the chat. He says it's such a classic, so many storytelling and tropes in it. It really blends sci-fi and fantasy into a unique genre. And that kind of goes to my second question: is what made it special. Like it was unlike anything else that was out at that time or for a very long time afterward. There's always been, I guess, a connection to Star Trek, but they don't feel anything alike. You know what I mean? That's like, to me, Star Wars and Star Trek is like Dr. Pepper and root beer, where you're like, they don't taste the same, but like they scratch the same itch. I know. How about you? What really makes it special? Either of you.
I guess.
I think Tim. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. It kind of goes back to with my parents, I think, just growing up with it, and they just hearing them talk about how different of a movie it was for them to see for the first time, and how it really changed movies for them, and their fascination with it, I think, really made it special to me. And I've taken that obviously farther than they've ever thought I would, because I mean, they still like them, but I'm like a different level of a fan, compared to them now. And then I was just completely captivated with Leia as a little girl. Just her personality, and she's just such a spitfire, and everything about her, I loved her so much. And so I just think it was just so different. And I don't know, it was a world I could get lost in, I guess.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Sean?
I think for me, it's just like how it makes me feel. It's just a huge rush of joy or serotonin anytime I watch the movies or the series or listen to the John Williams scores. And I just think it's cool how big of a pop culture phenomenon it's been over the past 45 years, and how it brings so many of us together. Our unilateral love for Star Wars.
Yeah. And Han, I was asking.
Yes.
I asked people their first memory. How A New Hope came into their lives, and what truly makes it special.
Yeah, sorry, I dropped out for a second. Jessica, right when you said your screen froze, mine like completely went out, and I was nervous.
I just refreshed
and I was
mine
like,
so I can see myself again. Not that matters, but
of course it does. But I'm so glad I'm back because, again, thank you, Chaco. A New Hope is my favorite Star Wars film, so I'm so glad to be talking about it. My earliest memory is, I don't know, I was so young, too young to really form memories, but I found the VHS original trilogy set in my home, like in a cupboard, covered in dust. And I just remember being scared of, what was it? Vader, a stormtrooper, and Yoda were on the cover. And I remember Darth Vader like freaked me out. But I was just so interested because it looked iconic before even watching it, And I asked my parents if we could watch it, and of course they started out with A New Hope, and it was just like mouth agape, like, oh my God, this is amazing. What is this? And kind of ever since then, just been really attached to it. What was your follow-up? What makes it special?
Yeah.
For me, I did this in my original review for A A New Hope, I said it's three things for me. It's innovation, imagination, and adventure. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys about all the great things this did for cinema, but it also brought back like modern mythology telling and stories, and just the adventurism that Lucas brings to not only this, but like Indiana Jones and other stuff he works on. It's just a fun ride from beginning to end, and it's goofy, it's weird, it's different, and it's imaginative, and it feels good, you know? I mean, the cantina scene. What? There's so many cool things in there. It's just there's always something cool every time you watch it. Like even for like watching it with someone who'd never seen it before too, that's cool. Because immediately they're like, not really into Star Wars. And then you show them any of the movies and they see all these creatures and lore and lightsabers, and they're just like, you know? So I don't know, many things, but those are my three for what makes it special.
Yeah, I come back to blue milk. Blue milk is what makes it special. And I say that as like a metaphor that Lucas tried to make a universe so different that even the milk is different. Like he went down to that level. Who does that? Like that's not a practical thing to do. And if it was white milk, if it was white, we would assume it was milk. We would move on. But that's not what he wanted to do. You know, you mentioned the cantina scene, and there's so many different creatures and all this stuff, and there's all the you don't have to do that. No one is doing that type of stuff. You know, you will if they put aliens in it, usually it's really bad suits, and there's like two other species and just a bunch of them. No, this was a full-fledged, like we're not in Kansas anymore, and that's what the other thing, the Millennium Falcon, right? It's weird. He said make it a hamburger and then just make it like it's a chunky ship. It's not smooth. It's not symmetrical. Who thought, you know what I mean? Like that being the idea for the ship is like what makes it special. And you mentioned it being goofy. That's the best part. Like it's camp.
It's always been camp.
but it needs it. I don't know. I could talk all day on it.
But you're right. He does that thing where, you know, he made the Millennium Falcon based around the idea of a hamburger, and it just takes things from our reality and what is it called when you make it abstract or like hyper exaggerate, similar to like animation, kind of a reflection on our world. Like even Boba Fett's ship, Boba Fett's ship. It was the idea was given to the concept creators, like, hey, base it off the lampposts that are around LA, those iconic lampposts or the streetlights, and that's where that came from too. So it's like getting into that iconography of it. It's like everything is familiar, but it's also different and new, and it reels you in, you know.
Yeah.
We can also thank Ralph McQuarrie for that.
True.
God bless.
But like but it's focused on, you know, repurposing all these things, but still telling this simple story that is timeless, right? It's a coming of age story, and there's no one anywhere that couldn't relate to that. And then the music. Oh damn! No, I can keep going. I'll have to move on, but we'll.
All of us are like,
Well, my next question was kind of what makes Star Wars, and so we were kind of already talking about that. I just wanted to add, you know, George wanted it to function as a silent movie, and it does. If you have no dialogue and you just watch the actions and the music, you know exactly what's going on. You know who the good guy is. You know who the bad guy is. The silhouettes are perfect in that. And that's what makes Star Wars to me. How about you guys? What makes it different? Or if you've seen things, people will be like, this doesn't feel like Star Wars to me. What is that feeling? I'll go to Jessica first.
Star Wars for me is several different things. I feel like behind, the wars that are going on, behind the fantasy and sci-fi aspects to it, it's the themes of the stories. And so that's what really draws me to it, especially redemption. I love that theme throughout Star Wars, how a character can go so horribly wrong, but they still believe that there's good in you and that you can come back, and you can change your destiny. And I love that so much. I love the duality of Star Wars. It's not just like the light and the dark or good and evil of the Force, but just how Lucas and everybody else who's continued that legacy kind of has echoed it, from being twin sons on Tatooine to there being a dyad in the Force in the Rise of Skywalker. There's so many things that he says it's poetry, it rhymes, and I love that. And I know that people really come and love it for like the found family aspect of Star Wars stories, and I love that too. But I just think that those things are kind of what draw me to it, is that hope and redemption, and there's always hope, it's never over, you can change your fate, and I don't know, just the psychology of it all I really enjoy.
Yeah, and that's why I love, like, whenever I see people with a wildly different Star Wars ranking than me, I get excited to talk to that person because I want to find out what's the through line to all of these films that make you really love them, right? Because we all see things from different point of view. But yeah, Sean, how about you? What makes Star Wars Star Wars?
I think it comes down to it's a fantasy in space, with space wizards, but somehow it still feels relatable. And I think we can all find ourselves, either in a character or in a theme from Star Wars, no matter which film you're looking at. And to double down on the it's poetry, it rhymes, and the found family aspect for me.
Yeah, I identify a lot with Jabba the Hutt. How about you, Han?
I mean, to kind of echo what you all are saying too, I think it's kind of, for me, just about idealism. These characters, whether they're evil or good or somewhere in the middle, they're all chasing this ideal that for perfection or balance or ultimate power. And the whole background behind these ideals is that they're not really achievable. I mean, the Jedi prequel era were trying to achieve balance. I know there's different points of view on what balance is, but it's never really achieved for them. And the same for, I guess, the villains with the rule of two, different things like that. And just that's something that I relate to. Luke, for example, for me, he says, I'm never going to get out of here in A New Hope. That's impossible, talking about some of their obstacles. And it eventually does become possible. He does leave Tatooine, and it's just about chasing that dream, or just doing something with yourself, just making the impossible possible.
Beautifully said. Yeah, I can relate to that as well. And for me, the big thing about Star Wars is, like I said, the granular nature with which it was created, where all of these characters do have their own points of views. They have their own agendas, their own pasts, and their own goals. And so these things that we didn't really get in the original, fables and mythologies, because a lot of the people are very one-dimensional, because it's telling you this very specific thing. It gets so much deeper in Star Wars in all of its medium, where yes, Luke is the good guy, but like what the other good guys, what Obi-Wan and Yoda are telling him he needs to do, is wrong. They're telling him you have to go kill that guy, and he's like, I'm not going to do that. He had to choose his own path. You know, that's not a thing in Fables. It's you have to go slay this dragon, and you don't see him like fist bumping and becoming besties with the dragon, right? Darth Vader, the bad guy, right? You end up finding out this guy is a villain because he is a victim, and you know the concept that I don't know, there is no. What I get from it is that there's no absolute good. We all have to try to make the right choices from our perspective, but there is evil, and we have to make the choice to be good, to do the right thing. But no matter how far we've gone down the wrong course, you can still choose to be better than you were. You know, doesn't absolve you of your crime. And if Vader survived, he should spend the rest of his life in prison. But that's a whole different topic.
It's a whole other thing.
All right. Well, so Star Wars is making a lot of different and new media right now. We're in the middle of Obi-Wan. Well, we have the last episode left. What is the what do we need to make sure we aren't forgetting in future Star Wars projects to keep it good, to keep it feeling like Star Wars, to keep our love? What's the DNA we need to make sure is in all Star Wars projects that we're going to get? Does that question make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Han, you want to go first? And I'm actually going to put on some background music here, so don't
Sure.
be startled.
Well, for me, I mean, that kind of goes back to your original question of what made Hope so special. I'm going to repeat myself. Sorry. I think going forward, I think what Star Wars is going to do is
Your microphone keeps kind of going in and out for me. Does that sound like that for everyone else?
Yeah,
Okay.
let me check something. Okay, how's that? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Sounds much better.
Cool. Just to kind of reiterate what I said before, I think going forward, I think Lucasfilm, Disney, Star Wars should look at the imagination again. Not to say that they've lost it, not at all. And innovation, which they're doing with Mandalorian and other things like that. Kind of create world build some more, you know, which they've done really well in shows like The Mandalorian. And I think what people really love is getting new characters, new timelines. People are obsessed with the High Republic era, you know, that's essentially all new ground that is being explored. And with things like all these new LGBTQ characters that are coming out too, it just, I recently did a video talking about some of the fan favorite queer characters, and I didn't even realize how cool some of these people are. Like, what was it, Sarek and Tarek? Were those the Bond twins?
Sarah and Tarek, yeah.
It's like, that's a whole new character, a brand new character with a really cool attribute to them. And it opens up the world, and for more fans too. Like, now more represented people can appreciate different storylines. But I think just keep expanding, keep growing, more characters. I don't think it can hurt, you know?
Awesome. Love it. How about you, Jessica?
I think for me, as long as I agree with all the things that you just said, but added to that, I think Star Wars ultimately has to be about hope, and you know, the next generation, and so I think that as long as that's continued, I mean, even one of the most depressing and sad Star Wars movies, Rogue One, ends with Leia talking about hope, you know? And so to me, that is the most important thing. I like things to be, you know, like, you can't be seamless from animation to live action, you just can't. But for them just to do the best they can with keeping characters as consistent as they can, and that sort of thing, I know that's really hard to do, but I think that's important, especially for the people that have loved and watched these animated shows, and now they're getting to see these characters on live action. I think it's important to make sure that, you know, you're doing the due diligence to give these characters just as much as they deserve, regardless if they started out in animation or not. But I think those are the main things for me, and I feel like Han has already settled a lot of things that I was thinking as well. So.
No, I think you said something really important that I didn't cover, and that was thinking about the next generation. I mean, what did George Lucas always say, right? The prequels are for 12-year-olds. The original trilogy, it's for 12-year-olds, but everyone can enjoy it. And it made that generation grow into who they were going to be when they were adults. And ultimately, that's what George did with these movies. I mean, look at Return of the Jedi. Look at how much that film taught maybe all of us. I know it taught me as a kid a lot, about loss and obstacles and things like that. So I love that point you made, Jess, about thinking of the next generation. That was great.
Yeah, I think it's important because some of us are prequel generation, whether you like them or not. Like that's kind of when we were kids, and I don't know. I think it's just important, especially with just to kind of piggyback on that with the newer movies. I know they've gotten a lot of hate as well, and there are, for me, like obviously, like little girls are, that speaks to my heart so much. Seeing how much they love Rey and different things like that, and so it always makes me really defensive of characters. I'm like, no, but they're the new generation of kids. Like it's their heroes, So anyway, I think that's just important too.
It makes me so happy to think that, like, also a little bitter, but like little kids can walk around Disneyland and see Rey and Kylo Ren and all this stuff, the stuff that was new when they were coming out. And because a lot of times it's difficult for like a kid to go back and jump into A New Hope, Yeah, so like you said about the next generation, that is awesome. It said consistency with world building and previous quality of costuming, set design, prop design. Biggest immersion breaker is easily identified props. I need more spacer suits, damn it. which is also very true. And I think there's interesting bits to it because like in The Mandalorian where they made the blurgs run, they made it look like stop motion animation through because it would have looked too good had they done it, and they needed that little bit of jank, I just love that. Also, but right before I go to Obi-Shan, I will ask this question later on. Not sure if you're familiar with the book. From a certain point of view, it tells stories about these random side characters in the films. And so if you could, in the future, I'm gonna ask you if you could write one of those, what character would you pick and why? So you can keep that marinating on that. But yeah, what are your thoughts, Sean?
I think one through line that will always be important is the aspect of hope and found family. I think that resonates and transcends to the fandom itself. And then, with the leaps and bounds that ILM has taken in advancing technology with Star Wars, I think it's, important to remember we should occasionally, focus on those more practical effects. I mean, the volume has done wonders for the industry that they use on The Mandalorian. But sometimes you like to see those practical effects. I think sometimes technology can be a little dangerous with, what we're seeing with the de-aging and the face mapping. I'd like to see us eventually go back to, actors playing the original trilogy characters or characters in that time. I think at some point it's going to get a little bit weird. So I'd like to see, practical actors take on those roles. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah, and just like a certain point of view podcast.
It's Michael.
Okay. So, loving the majority of shows we're getting right now, they're filling in gaps, but Star Wars needs to move forward. I agree with that. I think treading the same water is great nostalgia bait, but also sometimes we can hold onto our childhood memories too tightly and are unable to embrace anything that might be different than how we thought of them. It could very well be baked into the character and the stories and always been there, but it's not how we thought of them, and we might have a hard time with that. But all right, let's talk about the movie itself. First act, we get the opening scene all the way through all the way through all of Tatooine. I gotta ask, what jumps out at you guys? What are your favorite moments? What's special about this? Uh, and I laugh thinking about George Lucas wanting to make Tatooine longer, of just like 2/3 of the movie are just the droids wandering in the desert. He's a madman, but I love him. What do you guys enjoy about the first act?
I'll start.
Anthony,
For me, it's the like if you watch it for the first time, you have no idea where this is going. And that's what I love about it. Just creating mystery and also setting up the universe while it does it. The exposition in the first 20 minutes it's so wonderful because that's when you're introduced to all the things we were talking about. The villain right at the beginning, the droids, and we don't even see Luke. What is it, 20, 21 minutes in or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
And or rather than that, a human to connect with actual lines of dialogue. We had Leia, but didn't say much. And some people who go back and watch it, who are maybe younger than I am, don't really have the patience for A New Hope. But for someone like me, I'm just so captivated by it. The scope of the shots on Tatooine, the way it looks, the way it feels, the Jawas hiding in the canyon, their point of view, all that kind of stuff. It's just, I don't know, it's gripping to me. It was different at the time, and it was tonally something totally unique, and it just gets better and better as it goes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a freaking Great Dragon skeleton, just it's those small touches. So shout out to Jedi Master DePaul. Thank you so much for the $10 ramen drop, as we say. We finally actually got to have ramen with DePaul at Celebration, but thank you, always appreciate it. How about you? How about you, Jess? You sound like you were saying something.
Oh, I think Lucas just sets the scale instantly with, the shot of that Star Destroyer. And I mean, I remember even as a kid, you see the bottom of it and it's just continuing. And you're like, oh my gosh, like this is in space and it's ginormous. And then, like you were saying, you see that, at the time, we don't know what the skeleton is, but it's, again, ginormous, and just like sand as far as you can see. And so I think that the intros to characters are just so wonderful. You know what's happening, kind of the plot, like what who you're rooting for, who you're not, you're kind of there already. It's just such a great introduction to a movie. I love the droids so much. Anthony Daniels is just like incredible. I don't still cannot comprehend how you can do so much and convey so much emotion and different things being in that costume that he's in, without facial expressions. And I don't know, I enjoy the time with the droids, and obviously seeing Leia for the first time. I don't know, it's just a great opening to the movie, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, shout out to Dyad in the Force, which is my other podcast that I have with Element 7, another $5 drop. Always appreciate it because we just try, love sharing as much love in the community as we can. That's the whole goal. I just also will say that the dialogue and the exposition, like it doesn't, it sets everything up perfectly without overdoing it. So it doesn't explain everything, but it also doesn't only explain things. So like they toss out that Obi-Wan was a general in the Clone Wars, and you're like, the hell is that? And you're like, yeah, you're not gonna find that out for 30 years, so don't worry about it, and the universe was just so lived in. What do you think, Sean?
For me, I think like just the opening crawl alone is so iconic. The first time you hear this, the Star Wars fanfare, and you get so much exposition in that text. I love the banter between C-3PO and R2-D2. Even though you can't understand what R2-D2 is saying, he's just got so much attitude and energy behind him. One thing that's always stood out to me in Act 1, though, is, you see all these amazing costumes, and then you get to that scene with Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru and Luke sitting at the table, and Beru just looks like she got her outfit, off the rack at Ross. It's always been just taking me right out in that one scene. I always thought it was really funny.
Also, I think the best introduction to any character is Han. It's just Han Solo. The whole cantina scene is just goated. In my opinion. Yeah, it just like we all said, it does so much and establishes so much so quickly. Anything we left out? Any final thoughts on that you want to hit on it in this first act?
Well,
I think in that cantina scene, and go ahead. Sorry.
We keep doing this. I was just gonna say that I know I was thinking the same things like you were saying, Chaco, about the Clone Wars, and there's just like so many little things that are thrown out. You've got even Han Solo talking about, you don't know what the Millennium Falcon is? Like, this is what, and so I love how Lucas just literally intertwines these little stories into just the script where it doesn't seem like much, but you're like, what is that? And then for all these years later, for us to be able to pull from those and create more stories is just, I don't know, shows kind of the brilliance of Lucas and his mind and just his imagination. I just find it so fascinating.
Yeah. And what were you going to say, Sean?
I was going to say, just in that cantina scene alone, too, you get, that cavalcade of characters and Glup Shidos that we get, no explanation for, off the bat, but later on, Lucasfilm goes in and just like fills in all the gaps and creates little stories for all these like background characters. I always thought that was really cool.
Because like you look in the back and there's just an ant. It's just a big giant ant in the back, and you're like, "What is that?" I'm like, "What is?" It's so cool.
Wasn't there some payoff for the ant character, like in was it Mando season 2, or maybe it was season 1?
In season 1, yes.
Yeah,
but that's, I don't know. It's so.
Wait, what was that? I missed it.
It does come back around. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was in it showed up in the sorry, I can't remember.
Like, is he back in the background? Is that what you guys mean?
Yeah.
He just shows up in the background again.
I will have to go back and watch. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. We got to see our first little lightsaber inside of there. Thoughts on the special edition A New Hope? For it, against it?
We just did an episode not too long ago. It was our first like live in-person episode because we all live in different places in the podcast that in a certain point of view, and so we watched the despecialized version, so as close as you could get, kind of to the original that came out. And I don't know, like, I think that there are parts of it that I like better how it is now, and then there's other things that I'm like, okay, that maybe would have been better if you'd left that alone. But I'm not super nitpicky on those things, so I'm fine with either way. Again, like I said, I'm kind of awful at Star Wars. I love it, so that's kind of my cop out on that. But yeah, I enjoy both of them. So
yeah.
For me, I think it's I totally respect if George Lucas wants to go in and change some things he didn't get to do before, add special effects, stuff like that. But what's different about the Star Wars special editions versus other franchises such as Blade Runner, for example, there are 6 or 7 cuts of Blade Runner, different special editions. There's so many. My brother's obsessed with Blade Runner. He tells me about all the different details in each of them. But what's different about those is the consumer, the audience, gets to have access to all 7 versions. People like us or casual viewers of Star Wars, it's not easy to find the originals. There's things to appreciate in both, I think, but I definitely prefer the untouched, unaltered versions. But I mean, George Lucas has been changing it. Like, it's not like he did one change, right? I mean, he went back in 5-12 times after McClunky, all this kind of stuff, and he kind of is Darth Vader at that point. Pray I don't alter it any further.
There's just a big CGI dinosaur that slowly walks across the screen, and you're like, this is insane. I don't know, it just makes me laugh. Sean, your thoughts?
I love some aspects of it. Like, you know, we get closer looks at some creatures like the dewbacks, which I thought was really cool. But like Nate was saying in the chat, you know, it started the infamous, you know, who shot first debate. I would say my least favorite specialized version was probably Return of the Jedi. I thought there was just so many unnecessary adds to that one. But overall, you know, I could go either way. But it was cool seeing the originals on Laserdisc before they started changing it up.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So we'll jump to the second act, right? So they escape Mos Eisley and get pulled into the Death Star, into what I think is the top 5 most iconic scenes in Star Wars, which is the Falcon pulling into the Death Star very slowly with the mute fanfare like rising up, and it is so badass. All of the Death Star stuff. What jumps out at you guys from that? We'll start with Sean this time.
Well, right before that, obviously, like Alderaan's destroyed. I think one thing that has always been missed is, you know, seeing Leia mourn her home planet, or the planet that, you know, she grew up on. We never really get to see that, at least, you know, on film. I think it's covered a little bit in some of the novels, but we just never really get to see the repercussions of that and how she deals with that on film. But I mean, yeah, the Death Star scenes are probably some of my favorite in A New Hope. You know, every frame is iconic.
Yeah. And Han?
For the Death Star stuff, actually, to jump off something you said, Sean, about Alderaan blowing up, that also brought us like one of the best Obi-Wan Kenobi lines. Like, sounds like a million voices screamed out in terror, and then we're suddenly silenced, or something like that. I love that line so much. But the Death Star stuff, just the setup, like when they're pulling in, they're like, we're being pulled into that moon. That's no moon, and it's like, oh, what is it? Like, right? It's really cool. And when they get inside and they impersonate stormtroopers as a cover and searching for Leia. I love it. This act is actually my favorite part of this movie, when they get into the jail cell and someone comes in over the intercom and Han's trying to act casual by talking to them, and then he just shoots the message. He's like, boring conversation anyway. I don't know why, but that gets me every time. I absolutely
we're
love
all
it.
fine here now. Thanks. How are you?
Yes. Yes.
How are you?
And you just yes, we're gonna have company. Yeah.
That's like how I approach most of my conversations, and or how I wish I could. And then, of course, the real introduction of Leia right after. Like, we get to see her personality more, like as far as like a leader, someone who doesn't take any bull. And yeah, I think the second act is probably my favorite part. It's where the humor really comes out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got some of my favorite moments for me.
The camp on the Death Star is so perfect. Like, I talk about it all the time now, but Han chasing stormtroopers down the hallway, and you're like, why are they running? It's just such a funny scene, and of course that leads into his shoulder charge move in Battlefront 2, and you know.
Hey, but you know what? That's a good example of
Chewie's head coming out of like where they're hiding in the Falcon. He just like casually pets his head.
And what were you gonna say, Han?
Oh, I was just going back to the special editions when Han is running down the hallway and turns around, he's being chased by stormtroopers. I think that's actually a good representation of a positive that came from the special editions, because he added more stormtroopers and it made it a little bit more believable that they would turn around, you know?
Yeah. When they're in the trash compactor and it stops and they're celebrating and C-3PO's like, they're dying. I
It's
just
a top C-3PO moment for sure.
absolutely.
That was always terrifying to me as a kid watching. I was so scared. I
Yeah.
was more scared of what was in that water than I was Darth Vader. Like, it terrified me.
Oh, the Dianoga. Love it. That's a weird from a certain point of view story. There's a story from the point of view of the Dianoga, and it's weird, and I hate it. Sean, anything to add?
I also love how right now, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series is adding so much depth to a lot of the scenes, especially like on the Death Star that we get out of those episodes. Like, Leia, when Luke rescues Leia, her saying Ben Kenobi, or the little smaller things like Ben tricking the stormtroopers by using the Force, or the little the comm links. Just the little nods are really awesome.
Yeah. And in Obi-Wan, I laughed so hard when he gets out of the water and comes in the door and he's perfectly dry. And you're like, it ain't that kind of movie, kid. Like, it made me so happy.
With kind of like you were saying, Sean, with the show, watching Obi-Wan, one of the things I noticed in these parts, as well as soon as Vader hears that Leia, someone broke her out of her cell, he goes, Obi-Wan is here. And I just find that so interesting now watching the show, because you're like, oh, he rescued her before. Like, I don't know. I found that line so much more interesting rewatching today after seeing some of the, watching Obi-Wan. So.
Yeah, she's like, Ben Kenobi is here?
Yeah. But even Vader, to me, I never even thought about Vader going, Obi-Wan. Like, it confirmed to him that he was here, that Leia had escaped. Like, even though Obi-Wan didn't even do it. But still, I just found that very interesting.
Yeah. I also have this comment on our Twitch, that feeling of not knowing what will happen, the suspense and wonder, such a blissful feeling. Yeah, would be amazing to be able to go back and rewatch it for the very first time. All right, let's and sorry, this has been too awesome of a conversation, so I've been dawdling a little bit. But let's jump into the third act, and what jumps out at you guys, kind of from after they escape, and it's like, they let us go, like the way she says it. Carrie Fisher is just a treasure. But yeah, from there till the end of the film, what jumps out at you guys? I'll go to Han first.
What's funny is when I was a kid watching this, the third act was actually my least favorite. I actually didn't enjoy the trench run and stuff like that. I think because it felt a little too, what's the right word? Almost historical, like that whole World War II dogfighting type stuff. I of course love it now, love the hell out of it. But what I think is, I just recently watched Top Gun Maverick, which I was hesitant to go into. Have you guys seen it?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Top Gun Maverick is A New Hope. Almost beat for beat. Not even joking. I don't want to spoil anything, but
I mean, I'm not surprised.
think about the trench run and everything that happens in those last 15 minutes on the trench run. The exact things happen beat for beat in Top Gun Maverick. It's that movie incredible for me, and I did like the original Top Gun. Anyway, I love it. It really, it's on all those setups that happened in the beginning of the movie, right? Introducing the Force, right? But it also adds to it. Like, Obi-Wan can still commune to Luke through that. So it's like Luke can now use the Force a little bit, but there's also a next level. Obi-Wan is still around spiritually and can communicate with him. And it just keeps adding wonder to things that are already wonderful, and it just gets better and better. And it's always really nice when there's a nice giant explosion at the end of a movie and everyone can just scream yeah. It's wonderful. I think the ending is great, especially that classic when they're walking down the that chamber they're in and they get their medals, except Chewie. It just feels good. The music, everything, it ends on a high, and man, it's great. It's just great.
it also, and kind of throughout this, it introduces how much of an obvious theater kid Anakin is, because everything, the way he kind of like throws his cape when he's like, a presence I have not felt since.
Yeah.
You're like, why is he so dramatic? But the
sassy man.
And then when Obi-Wan disappears and he's like kicking the
kicking the coat.
Yeah. He's like, is he in here? And you're like, Anakin. But in the trench run, it gives my favorite, one of my favorite Vader quotes of just going, "What?" So yeah, every now and then someone says something, "What?" It just makes me happy. I can't wait to watch Top Gun Maverick though. Now that makes me really excited for it. How about you, Sean?
So I think the movie as a whole, and especially like the second and third act, solidifies, Tarkin as one of the, biggest villains in Star Wars of all time. And honestly, like, the first few times I'd watched the movie, Tarkin almost scared me a little bit more than Vader did. The trench run actually unlocks a really deep memory, and this might show my age a little bit, but actually one of the very first Star Wars games was for like one of the original like Mac computers, and it was just like black and green, lines and stuff, but you could actually, play that last act of the movie where they do the trench run and you're flying through the trench and you shoot the photon torpedo. But yeah, I'd agree with Han though. It's probably my least favorite act of the movie, but it does end on a high note, which is really cool and kind of sets us up for Empire.
Yeah. Okay. Hot take. It doesn't actually have an ending. Like the thing blows up and then they're like, celebration. You know what I mean? Like the ending is just very abrupt, which isn't a bad thing. But I also just kind of love how, like you say, it keeps giving us wonder with more and more with the Force. And it also just, like, it just gives us stuff, Yeah, Luke showed up, and then they're like, "Get this man an X-wing, and we're gonna send him into battle." And you're like, "An active voice? That's weird," but I don't know. It just works,
He was smoking Womp Rats. This T-16.
Yeah. I still love it. How about you, Jessica?
So I was kind of the opposite. As a kid, I loved the third act. I was kind of sitting on the edge of my seat, kind of like, what's gonna happen, and I think that's why, like in Phantom Menace, I love the pod race so much, is because like it like brings me back kind of to that like intense moment of just like watching the screen and going, what's gonna happen, everything just kind of else around you just kind of like fades out, and I don't know, I love how the movie, how it ends, but like, there can be so much more, and then we know that there is more, and so that's like great for us. I couldn't imagine what it would be like seeing it and being like, what happens? What comes next? What are all these things? Like, is there gonna be another one? And the costumes at the very end are just absolutely superb. Like Han and Luke's outfit and Leia's outfit. I mean, I wish they had used those again in their movies at some point. They were just great. Like, I think maybe Luke wears that jacket again. I'm not sure, but I love fashion and costumes and all of that kind of stuff. So that just like gets me in all the places. I love the choices that they made for that. It just, you feel the importance of what just happened and them getting medals, other than poor Chewie, which, you know, he gets later, but it's still not the same. But anyway, it's just, you know, the regal us of it. And I remember going to Galaxy's Edge and they had Leia's necklace from that scene. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want that. But I'm like, when am I ever going to wear that? Never. But still, I don't know. Even just as a little girl, just being like, wow, so fancy, you know, that they saved the world, kind of, you know, galaxy, whatever. But I don't know. I enjoy the whole movie. I think I'm glad Lucas chose this one to be the first one, because I think it's the perfect little, you know, toe dip in the water of a taste for Star Wars. And it might be a harder place for like kids now to start with them, because it is a little bit slower paced, I think, than movies that they're used to. Things are a lot more fast paced now. But for me, it's always going to be the original movie and the original thing that got me into Star Wars. And it will always be my favorite. So I just love this movie.
Yeah.
Chaco, I did want to go back to what you said about it not really being, you know, a real ending. And I do think that's like really interesting because, you know, there was so much uncertainty about how the movie would perform. That was a really like interesting place to leave that film, considering, you know, the Emperor still existed, the Empire was still out there. They just destroyed one of their, you know, large battle stations.
Yeah. One of the positive changes I do believe is, if I'm not mistaken, Vader's ship doesn't stop flipping
No.
out of frame at any point in time. And as a kid, I thought he was just flipping out there forever. You know what I mean? I was like, that's how space works, right? He's just spinning out there, you know. But now they show him right it. So I don't know.
How
I
great
like
was that?
change.
That even if this wasn't as successful as it was, and there was only one film, it could conclude Vader's story there. Like maybe he just died out in space. He just never stopped spinning, as you say, and he just ended up passing away, right? But it was
1
successful,
million
and
years later.
yeah, but it
Just
was
like bending around
successful,
in space.
and they're able, yeah. But it's nice how it could have worked either way. I think that was a smart move on the team's creative approach.
Yeah. Speaking of the team, I'm actually really, really excited for the Lucasfilm, for the ILM documentary that they're making.
Yes.
Because it sounds wild. You know, when you look at all the stuff that George Lucas did, it seems like a given, like a no-brainer. But he went against so many norms in making this movie and the way that he did things. To where like he couldn't even go through the proper channels because he had already broken so many of the rules. And so the stories of ILM just being like a bunch of 20-year-olds like on a farm just trying to make stuff and not knowing how it's going to work, like, and having to figure it out from scratch. Like it just sounds so punk rock. That yeah, I can't wait to
Were
to
you
check it
at
out.
the panel for that at Celebration?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was hearing them talk about it. I was already excited for it, but I think it's really going to get personal because, you know, Larry knows all of them on a personal level. And so it's like, it'll be a better show if some outsourced documentarian crew was making it. So the fact that it's done in-house, I think it's going to be really special. I can't wait.
Yeah. So cool. And the way that it's inspired, the greatest thing that came out of Star Wars, in my opinion, is the way that it inspired all creative people moving forward for all time. Yeah, nothing will ever be the same, and people got to grow up and start to work on these, which I do also believe is a two-edged sword, because if you get people working on projects and they weren't fans of the prequels, that won't be represented. And if that's what the people watching want to see, then they will feel, you know, left out. And I know some people now, if they got hired, they wouldn't represent the sequels because they don't like them. It's kind of an interesting give and take, but I don't know. I'm excited to see where it goes. But yeah, I want to move forward. Any final thoughts on A New Hope? Things that we missed that we need to bring up?
Editing. This was the only Oscar nomination for a Star Wars film. Editing. Well, also I think Best Picture, but it didn't win. It actually won for editing, and it is remarkable in this film. I mean, the fact that it's completely the construct of it is completely different than the shooting script as far as like its continuity and the order in which scenes take place. Marsha Lucas, she kind of led that post-production department, and I don't recall the editor's name. If any of you do you remember who was the lead editor? I remember,
I do not.
I just know that Marsha took the reins on that. So
yeah, she did, and she did a fantastic job. There's a touch to the editing of this film that is not seen in Empire and Return of the Jedi. Not to say that they're worse, but the pacing of it is so unique. Like we talked about, it opens up with an opening that we hadn't seen in a film before. The cold open, where we don't even get main characters until 20 minutes, following droids, establishing world building, all this kind of stuff. It was done really well. There's a lot going on, but the movie doesn't feel complex. It's told very well.
Yeah.
I think it would have been really interesting to see like what the other films would have, the end result would have been if Marsha was allowed to edit, all 9 films.
Too.
But at the same time, I felt like the prequels just did their own thing, and they eschewed any sort of formula in a way that I think benefited the universe. And I don't know if we would have gotten that, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, and kind of closing up here. I have to ask if you guys could. Well, the 2 questions: if you could greenlight any new Star Wars project, what would you make? And then the next one is the from a certain point of view one. If you could tell a story from any random person, can't be a main character, random person in the universe, whose story would you tell? And do you have any idea what it would be about? All right, I'll go to Jessica first.
I'm gonna pick the same for both. Infus Nest, I just am so fascinated with that character in Solo, and I would just love to know more about everything. I don't know, just everything. I find it so fascinating. So, hey, in another Solo movie, I'd do it. I'd greenlight that.
So would you want a movie or like a series with that character?
No, I think a movie, just because it would be nice to get another Star Wars story movie. And I don't know if there would be enough or need to be as much content for a complete show. I think it could be told in a good way in a movie, like her backstory, how that crew is set up, how they're working against things, like all of that. I just, I think it could do a movie. I think that could work.
Awesome.
Sorry, I'm not trying to cop out by using the same, but kind of am.
No, you're fine. You're fine. How about you, Sean?
I'd actually stick in that same era. I would have loved to see the completion of that whole like Solo's a Star Wars story and like the Crimson Dawn story. Following up with Han's first smuggle for Jabba, and then the follow up with Kira and Darth Maul, and that whole story. And then I think from a certain point of view, and that's a hard one.
More Kira.
More Kira, for sure.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of someone else, but it's not really coming to me.
Always more Kira.
Amelia Clark is so awesome. We need to Star Wars.
Real quick, my latest thought from a certain point of view has been essentially the last day for Salacious Crumb. Just that last it's a day in the life of Salacious Crumb. He's just chilling with Jabba, just laughing all the time. He's just having fun. He goes on the barge. Things don't work out for the people on the barge, but I just think it'd be hilarious to try and see the world through his beady, terrifying little eyes.
I would read that.
How about you, Han?
As far as green lighting, that's a really tough question. Something I've always wanted to see explored more would be anything lore based, just learning more about the universe. But I think specifically, not necessarily the original drafts that Lucas had for a sequel, but ideas from that. I really am fascinated when him and Dave did the Wills episodes in Clone Wars. I've always had this weird idea of something I imagined in Star Wars as a old wizard type record keeper who lives in the center of the universe, similar to kind of how that Loki show went down. Just someone who keeps tabs on everything that happens, and it can kind of play on that theory that R2D2 is like the person or the droid telling the Star Wars story because he's been in all the movies and stuff. I don't know, something lore based, something getting into, I guess, origins of this world. What do they view as like the people in this world? What do they view as like their higher power, deity, more about the Force, things like that.
World between world stuff in there too.
Yeah, totally. See, I mean, stuff like that. Like maybe they go to a different galaxy they don't have lightsabers or Sith users. Maybe it's something different, something like that. Point of view. I don't know if it counts on your criteria you gave, but Mace Windu, and I don't know if that counts because there've been books and stuff, but he's my favorite character in Star Wars, and more of him the better.
You have chosen wisely, my friend.
Yeah, I got my Mace saber behind me too.
Nice.
That's beautiful. It is beautiful.
Right next to my Porg.
As far as the green lighting, my favorite thing, and I mean I have a lot of things I would like to green light, but as the Podwans podcast says, Dexter Jetster. I need a Dexter origin film.
A show, like a Cheers style show.
Yes, I was going to say that. That'd be great.
The premise I've been putting out is that he's clearly in the witness protection program, right? That's why he knows about these cloning. He knows about toxic darts. He knows all of this. In the new book Brotherhood, is part of who teaches Obi-Wan about diplomacy and like negotiations. He had a crazy life, and so I want him to just be the diner owner who's trying to like protect his neighborhood, and heal people through food and stories and all this stuff. And then we have like a criminal element, someone is moving in trying to take over the neighborhood, and maybe people uncover that he was like an agent or something in the past, and he has to like fight off the whole city block with just like the locals there. I think that would just be the best.
I love how Ponkrell is just like the antithesis of Dex. Like they're just like two opposite sides of a coin.
Absolutely. Have Bedazzler, Brooke. I want a POV of Obi-Wan's barber. Of Obi-Wan being like, life. I want a mullet. And Barber's like, okay.
Are there barbers in space?
I mean, there's got to be.
Someone did that to Obi-Wan. Awesome. Okay. Well, yeah, thank you guys so much for coming out and for talking with me about A New Hope and Star Wars. This has just been super fun. I love having these conversations with this other content creators. So you guys were all welcome back on. If there are other stuff you want to talk about, I will get you on for a Mace Windu specific episode because
Yeah.
he gets disrespect that he doesn't deserve. Okay.
I agree.
I'll put my foot down there.
It
Anyhow,
was the Clone Wars show for me is what made me not like him.
Oh.
but he was right though.
He's so mean. Into Ahsoka.
But yeah, if we can, we'll go around one last time. If you guys can, once again, say where we can find you and your amazing content. If you have any closing thoughts, and yeah, that's it. Where we can find you and any closing thoughts that we might have missed on Star Wars, on A New Hope, on any of this stuff. I'll go to Obi-Sean first.
You can find most of my content on TikTok, obi.sean_kenobi. Same name for Instagram and YouTube. My Instagram could use a lot of love, so Chaco and Diet Army, do your thing. And then I haven't filmed any content for YouTube yet, but I do have a channel. So if you want to support me, you can subscribe to that. As far as just the podcast overall, it's really awesome to talk about the movie that started it all, started our love for Star Wars. So it was amazing talking to all of you guys about that. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Been trying to have you on for a while. So yeah, nice.
And I'll be on the Obi-Wan Kenobi series synopsis. I think 2 Saturdays from now, with you and Element.
Oh, on the awesome! Can't wait. And Han.
Yeah. First of all, thanks again for having me, Chaco, Jessica, Sean. It was so nice meeting you guys. I'm gonna follow you both right now and check out your stuff, and maybe I'll have another conversation sometime in the future. Yeah, everything for me is at Han Talks first, YouTube, podcast. I love meeting new people, so reach out to me. TikTok as well. I'll be doing my Obi-Wan review tomorrow, probably live. So if you want to say hey, feel free to come by. And Chaco will have you back sometime soon as well.
Awesome, appreciate it. Oh, I mean, did you want to talk at all about A Better Murmur?
Oh, thank you. Wow. Yeah, I'm also a filmmaker, and I recently just my a project I was working on last year premiered last weekend at a film festival, and I did the music for it, and it's getting another distribution this upcoming weekend. But if you guys want to see that, I posted on my Instagram too. I don't know when it's going out to other theaters around the country, but I'll post it whenever we get the news about it. But hey, thanks for letting me share that. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
It was a horror film, by the way.
Congrats, that's amazing.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
That's super cool. I may need to have you on for an upcoming music episode. I was
like
that.
Yes.
Last but certainly not least, Jessica.
I am on Instagram. It's just Jessica McNair, and then I'm also a part of the podcast A Certain Point of View. And our Instagram and TikTok is A Certain Point of View POV, and then we also have a Twitter, and it's I think certain point of view _POV or something like that. I can't remember. One of the other guys does the Twitter, so I need to look and double check. We can put that up here so I don't have it wrong. And then we also have a Facebook discussion group as well, A Certain Point of View podcast. So I have enjoyed being on here so much. I'm a little bit newer to this world, so it's definitely a pleasure to be on here. Kind of a hidden fan for a while, and then hit my 30s and thought, why not just be a Star Wars nerd? Like, just do it. So
Hell yeah.
here I am. But thank you for having me. This was so fun. It was so great meeting on you and Sean as well. So this was really enjoyable.
Awesome. All right, I appreciate it. Once again, thank everyone in the chat here. We have Zalusa Mayer, we have Luke from the Pod Ones podcast, we have B Dazzler, who by the way runs farfarawayfactory.com, does amazing stuff. Can make anything you want. Like I've seen the Revenge of the Sith jackets and stuff like that. Or if you just want, Lego Han Solo earrings, she's got you covered. Got Nate Wardrop. We have just an awesome group of people here. So thank you everyone in the chat. I appreciate this community and to be able to talk and nerd out with y'all. So once again, thank you, and may the force be with you.